Due to the Pareto principle, wouldn't most of the money still end up in the hands of the few regardless of the economic system? Probably. But here's the thing. This is the thing that the communists and socialists never understand. It's not about whether Bob has $1 billion and Jim has $100,000 and Jane has $1,000. It's about the overall condition of society. It's why the GDP is a bad measure. And I like things like HDI, the Human Development Index. Because you say, okay, if you were born into this society and at random, you'll be inserted into a position, would you still feel like that's a good life? And you have to ask yourself, are you treated with rule of law? Do you have a voice? Do you have the ability to better yourself? Are you hungry or not? Do you have medical care or not? Can you get an education or not? When you live in a certain place, are you afraid every night? Do you have running water and power? You have all these things. Good economic systems tend to make these things better over time. Bad economic systems rob you of these things. There's a wonderful book called Enlightenment Now. It's from Steven Pinker, where he exhaustively looks at the consequences of capitalism in the 20th century. And he says, okay, where did we go? From the 19th to the end of the 20th century, every single metric you could look at, from infant mortality to blah, has gotten better as a consequence of an elevation of all people. And extreme poverty has massively gone down. Now, the purveyors of regressive systems of the past want you to believe that everything's horrible for the vast majority of people. But even amongst the poor in our country, the vast majority of them do not starve. The vast majority of them live a decent life. I know this because if you compare them to the poor in the slums of Indonesia, where I used to live, you go outside of Debak City, you could see the extreme poverty that was there. Or you go throughout the townships in Africa and other places, no medical care, no access to medical care, seldom have running water, or the water is contaminated. A lot of people have multiple children because at least one of them will die of an infant disease that they can't get treated before the age of 18. No access to education, no free travel, rampant epidemics of sexual slavery, in some cases parents selling one of their daughters into sexual slavery to pay off debts that occur. That's life 2020 today of people in these areas. You cannot tell me that the impoverished in my country, the United States, live that same reality. Some do, but the vast majority do not, because the economic system prevents this from occurring. It's a fact, and people don't ignore it. Okay, so even if you have a Pareto principle thing, it's not about the Pareto principle. It's about this growth that we've had. Is there enough mixture of that growth so the human condition gets better? This is why taxes exist. And this is why you have some notion of redistribution. So there's uncomfortable conversations, and Andrew Yang was one of the first in the American political system to talk about this, about what happens when AI creates structural unemployment in the US economy. And there's a permanent 20 to 30% unemployment in certain groups that cannot be effectively retrained to participate in the economy. It's pushing universal basic income for that idea. And there may be some merit to that. We may have reached a time where we're producing so much that so much should be shared. Why do people still have to work 6-7 days a week or 2 jobs and work 12 hours, 16 hours when we have so much more productive capacity today than we did 20, 40, 50, 60 years ago when my grandfather was working? A lot of this also has to do with the economic system. If you debase the money, rich people, we do very well. Okay, I can call up Goldman Sachs anytime, and they'd be great to have me as a client. We can talk about how to hedge all my assets against inflation and grow as a consequence of inflation, or make money when the economy collapses. That's an option I have. 99.999% of people in America don't have that option. So when you debase and inflate the currency, those 99.99999% of people, they get poorer. They get less purchasing power. It's not immediate, but you feel it. When you go to pay rent, you feel it. When you go to the grocery store and you notice that you have less and less in your cart, but you're spending the same amount of money. You feel it when you go to the gas pump. You feel it when you buy a plane ticket. You pay your car insurance. Any of these things, they just get a little bit more expensive. And you're like, why is more and more of my paycheck going down? And by the way, my wages aren't going up. Okay? And what are you going to do? Invest your way out of it? No, because you spend all the money you make every paycheck. So bad economic systems create that reality. So inflationary monetary policy that massively prints money It's great for the rich people, the Jeff Bezoses, they do wonderful. It's horrific for the poor. And the people who advocate for the money printing are the very same people who claim that they're watching out for the poor and they're ready to go take care of them. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So you need a simple 10 to 20% tax on listed companies. Yeah, I would be a huge advocate of flat tax and a consumption tax. 10% flat tax, 10% consumption tax. Bah. And just don't do any exemptions. Everybody has some stake and skin in the game. And you know what? You take care of the poor people by spending it on certain programs that are block granted to the states and counties. You want to do social welfare, that's fine, but you have to do it locally. You can't do it at the federal level. It never works. And you work with public-private partnerships on it. There are tens of thousands of charities to work with that should receive government funding for things, but they don't. A lot of uncomfortable conversations have to be had. Difficult decisions have to be made. But another side about income tax, I want accountability, and you should get it too. If somebody is spending your money that they've taken out of your pocket, they owe you an explanation of how they spent their money. So every year, every quarter, I should get a beautiful quarterly report emailed to me from the U.S. federal government and the state governments with use of funds and as much detail as I ask for. What did you spend it on? KPIs. What was the outcome? What did you want to do? Where did it go? And if you miss your KPI several times, terminate the people. Why don't we have that? We demand it in the private industry.